Greetings YouTube, Remarkable Republican here to bring you the truth with truth-flavored bias, as always. Today I would like to take a look at the YouTube series Cobra Kai, which is nothing more than a vehicle for leftism and the gay agenda. Back in the 1980s, there was a trilogy of movies called The Karate Kid. These were works of positive morality which taught teenage boys about learning to grow up, take care of yourself, and defend yourself when necessary. However, in the intervening years, the two lead actors managed to secure the rights for the movies and decided to make a sequel trilogy, or not a trilogy, but a sequel series on YouTube. The two actors, of course, are Ralph Macchio and William Zimko. The two men are working together to produce a series to promote their Hollywood leftism rather than the values of the original movie. And the result is nothing short of a complete and total train wreck. However, I'm not here to criticize the show as a whole, which is dog shit, but rather to expose the leftism and gay agenda of the show. And after I expose the negative moral lessons that the writers, producers, and directors want to convey to you, I will then show you things that you can glean from this show that are actually morally positive if you just view it the correct way. So without any further ado, let's get into the bullshit that is Cobra Kai. Good shows have good characters. However, bullshit leftist propaganda shows have propaganda vehicles. I would like to review the top 5 propaganda vehicles who drive Cobra Kai. First up, we have John Kreese. Kreese was the sensei of Cobra Kai in the 1980s. He features in 2 of the 3 original movies. In this series, he is nothing more than a symbol of evil, read tradition, and he is seen as someone who gives bad, harsh teachings which hurt your life, or as real Americans know it, good morality. Johnny Lawrence is a karate instructor. He is Kreese's protege. However, in Cobra Kai, he is portrayed as a loser who lives in a shitty apartment, drives a rundown car, eats at gas stations, and has been psychologically damaged so severely by John Kreese that he is unable to really function as an adult. Daniel LaRusso, the supposed hero of Cobra Kai, is very much a boulderized version of himself from the original show. In the original show, or not show, movies, excuse me, LaRusso was an underdog, and he was someone who stood up for himself, made fairly wise decisions for someone his age, and learned. In this show, he's a car dealer who runs corny ads about chopping and kicking prices. This undercuts his credibility completely, as car dealers are completely dishonest and without any kind of integrity whatsoever. He, too, is a karate instructor, but only because he is an enemy of Cobra Kai. So his character goes from being a hero to a zero in this show, and it's really a complete and total disgrace. Miguel is Johnny's top student, and even though Johnny, as the inheritor of Cobra Kai, is seen as somewhat conservative, his student is not even American, but rather Mexican, so what the show is promoting is the idea of replacement Americans, i.e. that white people have become outdated and are being replaced. And the show is portraying that as something that is just happening, and that is a done deal. There's also Robby Keene. He is Johnny's son, but Daniel's student. So that is an interesting plot twist, but Robby is kind of a flat, boring character without any real traits or personality, so it is kind of a waste. Before we dive deep into the homoeroticism that underlies this entire series, I would first like to point out that both of our main characters are ostensibly heterosexual, yet both of them are wearing clear beards. Johnny often talks about picking up babes, to use his words, but he rarely does so. He self-cockblocks at a bar with a woman who shared all of his interest in order to pursue Miguel's mother. This is a long shot, and it's most likely just an attempt to deepen his ties to Miguel, or to self-sabotage so that he can have a plausible excuse for not actually picking up babes. Daniel is in a sexless, loveless marriage based only on money and a shared business interest. He is much more interested in karate, Miyagi-Do, Miyagi himself, even though he's been dead for years, and Robby Keene. So both of them wear beards, and they wear them well enough to fool the people around them, but not disinterested outsiders. I think it's very obvious to every viewer of the show that both of these men are closeted homosexuals. Now let's consider the various homosexual couples in Cobra Kai. The first couple should come as no surprise. These two men have been after each other for 35 years, Johnny and Daniel. During the original Karate Kid, there was certainly some desire on each of their parts to touch the other one and to be with the same girl. Even though they've been apart for 35 years, both of them have been thinking of each other the entire time. They also form a kind of bond of sorts because of their past feud over Allie. Clearly, she is nothing more than an olive oil figure. She is someone who was not all that desirable, but who they declare desirable because they want to use her as a mask. And if both of them are fighting over her / pining over her, then they have an excuse for not really being involved with actual women. Both men also have a sort of bond over 1980s nostalgia. It's no accident that the 80s is the gayest of all decades. In episode 9 of both seasons 1 and 2, Johnny and Daniel go on a mandate. In the first season's episode 9, Daniel actually takes Johnny home after a day of drinking and reminiscing. And they were about to hook up in Daniel's dojo, but then they run across Robby, Johnny's son, and this results in a fight. And when Johnny shoves Daniel, it's very much the way that one lover would shove another. The second time in season 2, when they went on a mandate, they were actually on an impromptu double date because each of them brought their girl to go out to dinner and dancing. However, despite the fact that they were with women, they spent way more time talking to, about, and looking at each other than they did their respective dates. So the homosexual tension here is clear. It's been building. And if the show were honest and open about what it's doing, then season 3 would be about both of them admitting their feelings and becoming gay married to one another. The second relationship that has some homoerotic elements, I don't think that it's homosexual strictly speaking, is the relationship between Johnny and Miguel. Johnny meets his neighbor Miguel, and this relationship reignites Johnny's passion for karate. Just meeting another man should not really reignite one of your passions unless you are in fact a homosexual. Johnny is clearly closer to Miguel than to the other students. And while I do think that Johnny has a bit of a crush on Miguel, I don't actually think that he's sexually interested in Miguel, if that makes sense. I think that it's somewhat platonic, but also, if you dug deep enough, there is a driving homosexual force at play. Johnny showed no interest in Miguel's mom initially, but that changes once he becomes close to Miguel. And if you are unaware, Miguel's mom, Carmen, was hot for the entire show. She didn't just suddenly become hot one random episode, so there was no reason for Johnny to have not noticed this, unless, of course, he wasn't really looking at women very closely. Another homoerotic, possibly slightly pederastic relationship is between Daniel LaRusso and Robby. Now, Robby, as I mentioned earlier, is Johnny's bastard son. Danny takes Robby under his wing as his protege. Daniel becomes more interested in Robby after some early shock when he learns his true identity. He had always been interested in Robby, but learning that Robby is actually Johnny's son really sparks Daniel's interest. And his interest in Robby is twofold. He's a karate friend to replace Miyagi. This is another guy to go out and get sweaty with and, be a man but kind of be gay with, but without the sexual part of being gay. And it also helps him forge a stronger link to Johnny, who is Daniel's real romantic interest. So by having Robby around, Daniel increases the chances that Johnny will randomly drop by, and thus the chances that he and Johnny will be able to pursue the life that Daniel has dreamt of for decades. Another homoerotic pairing, although it is not a prominent pairing, is the one between Robby and Miguel. The two of them have some sexual tension when they confront each other for the first time over Samantha LaRusso, Daniel's daughter and one of the tertiary characters in the show. What this is not that the two of them have homosexual inclinations, but rather that the two of them are reflecting the homosexual desires of their two senseis. So each boy, of course, admires his respective sensei and tries to model himself morally on that man's actions and teachings. So we see that both of them exhibit a little bit of gay-like behavior when they are together because of the way that they've seen their respective senseis interact. The weaker tension between them shows that Robby and Miguel are better men than their mentors, i.e. they are far less gay. I don't think they're gay at all, by the way. And that they are made of sterner stuff. Both of them are actually tougher than their respective mentors, even if they don't quite get a chance to show it yet. But I think in Season 3, because of things that happened at the end of Season 2, I won't spoil them, we'll get to see both of these men become men and show just how tough they are. It'll be interesting to see how their relationship with one another evolves given what transpired. Another homosexual relationship that might have flown under your nose if you weren't looking carefully is the one between Johnny and his son Robby. Now, this is fucked up, and do not blame yourself if you missed this one. But given the degenerate leftism that drives YouTube, it does appear that there are strong subliminal hints of homosexual conflict between Johnny and Robby. First of all, Johnny is jealous of Robby's closeness to Daniel and Samantha LaRusso. This most likely is driven by Johnny's feelings about Daniel and his desire to be close to Daniel rather than to lose Daniel to Robby. If Robby is Daniel's student or even boyfriend, then Johnny has no chance, and that is something that he can't handle. Johnny wants Robby to live with him despite an obvious lack of space. This is to suppress Robby and prevent him from becoming Daniel's chosen one. So if Robby is out of the picture, or if Robby has to interact more with him, and then he has more reason to interact with Daniel, then this gives Johnny more of a chance to get with Daniel and not have to worry about Robby stealing his man, as it were. Although Robby wants Daniel in a much different way than Johnny does. Johnny wants Daniel sexually, whereas Robby wants him as a father figure substitute. Now that we've seen just how degenerate and lost the producers of Cobra Kai are when it comes to morality, we need to try to view this show in a positive way that will make it teachable and Christian and moral. So I actually want to propose to you that John Kreese, the boogeyman of the Cobra Kai universe, is actually the only upholder of moral standards in the entire show. And here's proof. When we look at Johnny and his old Cobra Kai buddies when they get together and go out on the bike trip with the guy who's dying of cancer, we see that while they're not perfect, these students still have backbone. And they also remain men. All these guys are in their 50s now, however, they're all still tough, and they all still have fighting spirit. When they're confronted by much younger men at the bar and challenged to fight, they don't back down, and they win. Even the guy who's about to die in 8 or 10 hours is able to deck a dude. So, whatever you might say about Kreese, he does train winners. He does train people with grit. And because he instills grit, his effectiveness is undeniable. And that's what leftists really hate about tradition. Tradition works, and most leftists just want to draw a welfare check. Kreese is also the only adult male in the entirety of the Karate Kid / Cobra Kai universe whose heterosexuality is beyond doubt. Even old Mr. Miyagi was a bit dodgy. Kreese is also driven by patriotism. He was a war hero from Vietnam, and a desire to impart his wisdom. He is worried about the state of America's youth, and he also works in a field that is not all that lucrative to ensure that young men grow up to become real men, that they have the grit to survive. Had Johnny and his friends stuck with Kreese longer and given him a second chance after the initial tournament, their lives would be much better. They would be completed products of the Kreese Cobra Kai system rather than incomplete products. That was really the problem in Johnny's life. If Johnny had stayed the course and stuck with martial arts, which was clearly his calling, he would not have been the loser that we met in the first episode. Both Johnny and Daniel are attracted to Kreese, both for sexual reasons, but also because each man realizes that he is not the leader or philosopher that Kreese is. What original thought has Daniel LaRusso ever had? Exactly. Johnny is just a really watered-down version of his old mentor, Kreese. Kreese is the only real, standout, moral character in the entire show. Even if you disagree with everything I've said positive about Kreese, you still have to admit that he is the only character in the entire show with a clear moral message. So I leave you with this thought. Kreese is actually the good guy. If you want to live in a better world, you should learn more about what Kreese has to say and follow the teachings and ways of John Kreese. He may not be polite or politically correct, but his teachings do turn men into boys, and they also make sure that people are able to have the grit to face life's challenges. Until next time, I'm Remarkable Republican, bringing you the truth with a truth-flavored bias. Signing out.